Welcome to Be Bold Branding. I'm Tanya Eberhardt, founder of BrandFace. We help business owners, entrepreneurs, and real estate professionals differentiate themselves, and we do that through personal branding.
Hi, folks. I'm Michael Carr. I'm the COO of BrandFace. I was a client before I became a full partner in the company, and we're the only comprehensive personal brand building program on the globe. And we do these Fearless Fridays to help people take the fear out of putting themselves out there. You're going to be very excited about our guest that we have on here today. So welcome, Mr. Joshua Smith.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Hey, not half as honored as we are to have you. We've been looking forward to this so much. I'm going to give a little bit of snapshot of who Joshua is, guys. Most of you will probably already know him, but if you don't, you're about to know a whole lot more because this is fearless, guys. Okay, so Joshua is in the top 1% of realtors worldwide, voted the 30th top realtor in America by the Wall Street Journal, over 5,000 homes sold and selling more than one home daily. He's coached, mentored thousands of realtors all over the world. This is one of my favorites, Josh. Husband to an amazing and straight up badass wife. Like, that's awesome. What a great testament to her. And father to 3 absolutely awesome kids. And I think that's just the warmest intro we've had so far. So welcome.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Like I said, it's an honor to be here. And I love everything that you guys are doing. You know, when I had you on my podcast recently, I mean, you're the message, not just the message, but the services that you guys do. It's something that's never really talked about in the real estate industry and overlooked, and real estate agents just miss it, man. They don't see the value in it, and it's so ungodly important. You know, so I love everything that you guys are doing and the impact that you're making. So like I said, it's a massive honor to be here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, we'll jump right into question number 1. You know, this is Fearless Friday, so it's all about overcoming fears. We try to do this to let people know, look, there's only one way to do it, and I think that you're the author and of that very thing, that very premise, right? So tell us some fears, challenges. We'd love to hear from you, maybe a major fear that you have to overcome in your either professional life or your personal life.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's, if you were to split the atom on what, like, dissect the smallest possible thing, like the root cause of why some people create success and why people don't, and really why people choose to not go down that path, you know, it really boils down to limiting beliefs. I mean, that's, if we boil it down, I mean, that is the atom, right? You split the atom, boom, you get the A-bomb, right? So if people want to explode their life in a good way, business in a good way, you know, right? We really got to tackle those. And there's so many of them. You know, when I started my success journey about 14 years ago, like all this happened on accident. You know, I'd never thought I'd be in real estate, never thought I'd be here a long time, never thought, like, you know, I was just trying to solve my own problems. And in my early 20s, I became massively depressed. I dropped out of college and became extremely depressed. And my life just got out of control, just total victim mindset. And, you know, if I boil it down, it was really just me blaming everybody else for why my life was so shitty, you know, right? Which led to, you know, before that, I when I was growing up in high school, I used to compete in bodybuilding, and I was in really good shape as a kid and really active in that. But now I go from, you know, eating 2 chicken breasts for every meal to now 2 double Whoppers, and, you know, drunk every day by noon. Next thing I let my body go, I become morbidly obese. You know, right? And it's like, just with any habit, they kind of sneak up on you over time. All of a sudden, one day you look in the mirror, like, who the fuck is this person? I don't even recognize you anymore. And, you know, so I was extremely unhappy with my every situation, right? My health to my financial situation. I was working at the hospital, making $10 an hour, dropped out of college. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And to the point where I was having a lot of suicidal thoughts. And then the extreme was I was planning out my suicide and I was getting ready to execute on it. And luckily I didn't, you know, right? But that was kind of the wake up moment, you know, right? Of just, it freaked the hell out of me. And, you know, call it God, call it the universe, call it whatever your belief system is. But I just heard this loud internal voice that was like, look, you're going down this path. Like, let's just try this other path. You've never tried this other path. If that doesn't work, like, you can always choose to take your own life. And, but honestly, at that point, like, I had no idea what would even make me happy. You know, I think a lot of people struggle with that. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to be happy, or they want to be in a relationship where they would I want to just a significant other that makes me happy, or just have a happy marriage, happy business. Just want to be happy. Clients that make me happy. But they have no idea like what happiness even is to them. They don't go deep enough to be like, okay, is this thing truly creating joy, truly creating fulfillment? And then we don't understand that happiness is really just a delusion, right? It's like, what you're chasing is fulfillment. You got to do a lot of shit that makes you unhappy in the moment to create fulfillment. I get up at 3 a.m. every single day. That sucks. I'm never happy in the moment, but that then allows me to get everything done so then I can spend several quality hours with my family in the evening. Right? So that makes me fulfilled as a father. I'm doing my part, get to hang out with my kids, my wife, right? So we got to do unhappy shit to make ourselves fulfilled, but I didn't know what would make me fulfilled. So I just made a list of like all the things I knew I hated about myself, right? And again, I didn't know, when we talk about fears, there's a lot of fear going on at this point, right? Didn't know if I could turn it around, didn't know what this looked like. And I didn't have examples of successful people to really model after. And so I just made that list. So I was sick and tired of where my body was, where my health was, the addictions that I had, where my finances were. So, and really it was the finances and the weight that were the two top of the list. So I went to work at those two things, lost 118 pounds. And then that's what led me into sales, which led me into real estate. But during that time, man, it was every one of those was, going from working in the hospital. So as a nurse's aide, right? Then into jumping into sales, that was extremely scary. Right. The whole thing, I kind of knew that. So, it was scary going back to the gym and seeing people that are like, who the hell, like, they wouldn't even recognize me, right? But getting into sales, that was scary. Jumping into real estate, I'm 23 years old and the real estate, I'm selling memberships at a health club now, a local health club. And I knew at that point to go bigger with this and really have control of my life and again, create a financial environment that would make me fulfilled, I had to get into ownership. But managing wasn't going to be the path, and I didn't have the 800 grand to open my own gym. So real estate was just going to be a stepping stone. So a lot of people getting into real estate. Well, this is 2005. So everybody was making a ton of money, right? Or at least it appeared that everybody was making a ton of money. So I jump into real estate just as a vehicle to bank cash to go open this health club. So I jump into that space, but that was extremely scary. Right? Like I'd never had a job that wasn't W-2 before. I'd never, never operated a business, didn't know any, right? So, so many fears. And, then real estate business is exploding, right? Jump into the business and some of it was just luck and timing, but 48 deals my first year, hired my assistant, right after that first year. And that is like, I don't know if you guys remember hiring your first assistant, but
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like letting go and doing that.
Oh, so hard.
Right. Then I got to a point where I built up this great team. Well, now I'm exiting out of production, right. And I got all these clients that I've worked with over the years, right. And all these, I had some big investor clients that, were multi-transactional deals on a frequent basis, right. And now having to go to them and be like, nope, you can't work with me anymore. You got to work with one of my teammates. That was extremely scary, right. Then exiting from all operations and hiring my first CEO, if you will. Yeah. Right. Hell, even like starting the podcast, right? Get shit done mode. Originally, it was going to be keeping it real with Joshua Smith, no smoke and mirrors, right? But I was like, dude, I want to do something that I really want to do. For 10 years, I suited up every day, and I played the role, played the part. In real estate, you got to do that. Like I can't walk around like I do today, like with like a scrub with tattoos hanging out, and you're like, people are going to take me seriously in that, and they shouldn't, right? And that niche is a little bit different than what I do, what my time has evolved in. I still have my real estate team, of course, but you always dress the part with that. But I wanted to do a venture that was just me and be truly authentic and genuine, right? But again, I was freaked out about GSD mode and get shit done and what people would think. And like at that point, nobody had saw my, my lame tattoos that I got, in my younger years and, all this stuff. So how would that perception be? Yeah. Right. But how I've overcome them is, as I was overcoming overcoming depression, going on this pursuit to fulfillment. And I didn't know that, sometimes we've all heard the proverb that the teacher appears when the student is ready. So sometimes like the answers are right in front of you and you just don't have the awareness until the problem. You got to start asking yourself the right questions. right? So now my mind's shifted from this depression. My questions before were like, when do I clock out so I can go drink and just escape? I mean, that was my question every day, right? Now my question is, what would make me fulfilled? What would make me fulfilled? Right? So I'm a nurse's aide at a local hospital. I was afloat, but most of my time was spent on the hospice floor. So I'm spending 12-hour shifts with people on their deathbed, right? And my job as a nurse's aide, like all the legalities with nursing, a nurse gets a shot that takes 2 minutes. They have to chart on it out for 15 minutes. I mean, there's so much just, right? Like the nurses, they're so overworked and they're with the legalities. So my job was really just patient care, to be there, make them comfortable, hang out. And I developed a lot of relationships with patients over that time. Sometimes they're in there for 2 hours, sometimes they're in there for 2 months, right? So, and at this time, as I'm seeking, because I wanted to have success with this. So I wanted to go deep with fulfillment. Like, what would really make me fulfilled? Not just today, not just tomorrow, not just this week, this month, but like a lifelong fulfillment. Because I never wanted to go back to that place, right? So a lot of that was just fear of getting back to that place. It started, right? Like fear is a good thing, right? Not a bad thing. We just need to know how to utilize it as the teacher to deliver the lessons that it does, right? But now that I'm asking the right questions, right? And at that point, I just got extreme clarity on what fulfillment would be. And what that came to being is, all these people spend all this time with people on their deathbed at that point. I had conversation with each patient over and over and over. And after hundreds of thousands, I wasn't keeping count of patients and conversations over the years, every single one of those conversations. And I don't know if it was because I was like 21 years old. So if I was younger, or because I got close with them, but I wasn't like a friend or family where they didn't have to fake it. They could be honest, but they would share their regrets. And every single person, and you could see the pain in their eyes, had this shoulda, woulda, coulda regret list. Right? Wish I would have went after my dream career. Wish I would have, married somebody different. Wish I would have been a better father, better husband, better, whatever it was. Right? I'm like, all right, true fulfillment is being at the stage that they're in. At some point, we're all going to be on our deathbed, and we're going to reflect and roll back the tapes on our life. And it's going to be here before we know it. We're going to roll back the tapes, and we're going to ask ourselves internally, like, what do we do with this gift called life? Do we build something amazing with it, do something epic with it, or do we piss it away? And now there's no time left to make it right. And now we got the shoulda, woulda, coulda list, like all those people have. And that's how 99% of human beings operate. So at that point, again, it just clicked very heavily. And being in that environment was really powerful too. Hopefully those that are listening don't have to be in the environment. You can learn from my situation, right? But getting deep on that, just pretend you're right there right now. Like if you were to die right now, if you're on your deathbed right now, what would you regret? Right? And then you just got to make a choice. Right? What do I want more? Because I found in life, everything's going to deliver pain, right? I mean, you've got Jim Rohn says, you got pain of discipline or pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Right? But do you want to experience the pain of doing the work, or the pain of sacrificing your dreams, visions, and goals? Like the way I always put it to people is like, all right, hey, do you want to have the conversation with your family, with your kids, and tell them, hey, I apologize, I can't put you through college, or I can't put food on the table, or I can't pay the rent because I didn't go out there and do the work. I was too much of a coward to go do the necessary work that it takes for me to create the opportunities for my family and to create the life that all of us want and deserve. Right? Or are you going to overcome your fear and face your fear? I've never been able to overcome a fear. I just find the inspiration to face them, I guess, if you will, or face the fear of call reluctance. Would I rather have a conversation with a stranger that doesn't care about me or my family? If I leave my office, they get hit by a car. They don't give a shit. I'm not saying they're bad people. They might see it on the news and be like, oh, that sucks. I feel bad for him and his family. Right? But then they'll be like, oh, honey, what's for dinner? Right? And go out their life. So would I rather get rejected and have somebody tell me to fuck off or whatever it is, all that crap? Because I have massive call reluctance, just like everybody else. I hate being rejected, just like most people, right?
Sure.
But I just got to get clear on what fear would I rather face. Would I rather fear having a conversation with my family and those that matter most and tell them that I was too much of a coward and I let them down and can't provide the opportunities? Or would I rather be rejected by some stranger? Like, you just got to make that conscious choice and choose to face those fears. So, because I get asked a lot, like what is, what's your biggest, when it comes to your biggest fear? I'm like, getting to the end of life and not knowing with full certainty I did everything I possibly could, or not, knowing that I didn't do everything I possibly could to operate at my full potential, to create the best life that I possibly could for myself, my family, and have the impact that I know I'm capable of having. Like that's what I don't want. Like, I don't want to get back and be like, oh, I only gave 50%. Yeah, right. So again, like, what does that conversation look like or must look like for you to leave this life? And instead of having a regret list, be like, hell yes, man, life was badass. Life was epic. I left it all on the field, man. I gave my all, left it on the field. Now I'm ready for the next journey, whatever that is. So I have a visual exercise I go through every day. It's like my wife and I in our 80s sitting on the front porch of our patio and just looking around and be like, high five, baby, we did it. Right? Like, maybe we don't accomplish all our dreams, goals, and visions, but it's like, we know we did everything we possibly could to play all out. Not be a spectator, but just get in, dive in, and play. So you got to just pick and choose. Like, what matters more to you? Like, I'm not afraid of, because it's happened. Halfway through my career, I lost it all, put myself in $100,000 credit card debt, and made it out just fine. Yeah, right? Like, we put things into perspective. You are not going to fucking die, you know, right? Like, when you're like, I always look at, what's the worst that's going to happen? Okay, if I make a bad business decision, absolute worst case, I lose my business, I lose my house, I lose my cars, my assets get seized, right? Well, at that point, it's like, okay, even if we're on government aid and we have to go live in a little tiny studio apartment, right? With all, my wife, my 3 kids, and my 2 dogs, you know, right? It's like, well, you know, right? We got our health. I've got the people that matter most to me around me. Like, life's still pretty fucking good,
right?
Even with worst case scenario. You know, right?
And you got here once, Joshua, and it doesn't matter how far you fall. You get there once, you can do it again because you know what it takes.
And you don't make the same mistake twice. Yep.
Yeah, well, and some if you're a slow learner like me, sometimes you do. You know, right?
You try not to.
Yeah, because in different businesses, the thing just presents themselves, you know, kind of masked, if you will, and but it happens, and I'm not like, failing is you know, not going all in, not knowing that you gave it your all, that you didn't play, yeah, right? Not starting. I mean, not starting is failing, yeah, right. I mean,
I like Churchill. You know, Churchill said, "I've never failed at anything," and a reporter said, "You failed the first grade," and he said, "I got 2 chances to get it right."
Yeah.
That's you know, that's the way to do it. Yeah.
I mean, who have you ever met or known that's created success that hasn't failed exponentially more times than they've succeeded?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
People don't fear failure, you know, right? It's what they're really fearing is other people's opinion of.
That's a lot of it.
Of you know, and like shit like that, all this shallow shit. And we got to get clear on this, right? Well, okay, hey, if somebody doesn't think that you are as important or as cool, or if your importance to somebody else is based around the level of success or finances that you have, or, you know, your celebrity status, whatever it is, those are people you don't want in your world anyway. Those are shallow fucking leeches that you want to run from anyway, right? So if they think less of you and ditch you as a friend, they did you a massive favor anyways. You know, right? So we just got to dig deeper with this stuff. Like, well, why does that really matter? And I don't think people they just don't. They're just sleepwalking through life. Yeah, right. It's like more people spend more time designing their Christmas list or a vacation than they ever do their life plan, and really thinking about what is truly important, prioritizing it, and thinking about what matters most. Yeah, right. I mean, there's only you know, I've got 4 opinions that matter to me in this world. That's it. 4 opinions. Yeah, right. I'm gonna do whatever I can to make them proud, and everything else, like anybody else's opinion of me, is their business, not mine. Yeah, right. But just so I don't think most people consciously do this. It's just we operate this life so fast, and we don't slow down enough time to really reflect and think about this stuff. Yeah, right. And you got to be intentional with that. You know, right. Eliminate the distractions. Get off your damn smartphone. You know, right. And you know, spend time thinking about what matters most. And be intentional with it.
You know, Dr. Phil said, "Your opinion of me is none of my business."
Yeah, I like that.
That's one of my favorite Dr. Phil quotes. But I love one thing you just said, Joshua, which is, I don't think about overcoming fears. I just think about facing them. And I remember a quote that we have just comes from one particular really difficult time in my life when I just thought, you know, there's no way around this. I just got to go through it. And so the quote is, the only way around it is through it.
Yeah.
Because there is no, like, you can try and circumvent, but you're going to have to face it and just push through it. Yeah, and what was your, what was that, was there just one moment a defining moment when you said, this is it, I've had it, I'm done, everything changes from this point? Or was it a gradual thing?
You know, I mean, if it was to be one moment, that was the moment where, you know, I planned out and I was getting, you know, it was like the day I was supposed to execute on my plan for my suicide. I mean, that was kind of the turnaround moment of holy shit, you know, right? And again, it was driven by fear of not ever wanting to be that low in my life again. Yeah. Right. And then from there, no, I've never had a moment, a turning point or a moment, but that was, hit me so hard, you know, right. And I share that so much. Like I'm so just transparent with, you know, it's like I'm probably the only, you know, person who really, well, I shouldn't say only person. There's a lot of people that talk about this stuff, but that, you know, like I'm open and honest about the times where I was 40,000 short to the IRS and back tax, you know, of paying off my taxes, right? For the year, you know, losing everything, put myself in $100,000 of credit card debt, and, you know, sharing all of these because they're problems and challenges that we all go through. And hopefully though, you know, people can learn. I mean, it's extremely smart to learn from your own mistakes, but the smartest way to learn is through others, you know, right? So hopefully people can, you know, learn maybe what to do from me, but more importantly, learn what not to do. Because that's very difficult in life and in business. It's easy to figure out what to do. It's very difficult to figure out what not to do. But then from there, man, it's just those little tiny decisions each and every day. And I'll tell you, one of the most important things I've ever found, and one thing that I've gotten right through this whole journey, is putting myself in the right environment. You know, right? You know, because you get out of life based on what you create. You know, right? There is like what life will give you back, whatever level that you decide to create within. Well, you create based on what you expect, your expectations for yourself. So you always have to be raising the bar. So I'm very intentional. I always have. Like when I got into real estate, I had no idea what I was doing 23 years old. So I'm like, all right, let me go. I just went and interviewed and found the baddest ass team leader, broker owner that was in the valley. I didn't care what I paid him. You know, it didn't matter what splits were, like none of that mattered. It was just about, right? I knew I had to have somebody to model after, right? Because success is, as Jim Rohn said, it's not a doing process, it's a becoming process, right? And people have this, you know, this doing plan, but they don't have the becoming plan, right? And that's the most important question on your path to success. Once you get clear on what you want, right? Is it's all about, okay, who must I become in order to make this a reality? Yeah, right? It's like my mentor, Darren Hardy, publisher of Success Magazine and author of The Compound Effect, talks about when he got clarity that he wanted to get married. Yeah, right. But he wasn't dating, you know, right? So he's like, I'm at the point in my life now where I want to meet somebody and get married. So he was mentored by Jim Rohn. So he knew the power of clarity in this becoming process. So the first step that he did is he filled out a 40-page journal on exactly what he wanted and like what his ideal wife would be, you know, right? Everything, I mean, detail to like hair color and texture. I mean, just, I haven't seen the journal. I know it exists because his wife has told me about it. She's seen it. But then he's like, but then I wasn't like, okay, let me go find this chick. He's like, that'd be like me chasing butterflies. So now I had to fill out another 40-page journal of what type of a man must I become where this type of woman would want me and it'd be attract her into my world. You know, right? So it's always that becoming process first. And you know, right, the best way it would become is find others to model after. And there's like, yeah, we can all learn on like podcasts. I mean, all that's great, but there is having those powerful mentors in your life where you get to see how they operate in life. And I look at you know, we have mentors and we have coaches, trainers, consultants. Right? Like the mentor to me is, you know, somebody that makes me want to be all around better, not just better at business, but like just a better man. Like I'm modeling my life after them, at least in one capacity. And I've just always been very intentional of finding those right, you know, it's like, okay, like here's the person I'm going to model after for health fitness. Okay. Well, here's the best husband, you know, that I've ever seen. Okay. I'm going to model how I am as a husband after what this dude does. You know, right. The best father I've ever seen. Okay, I'm going to model after that. Business. You know, right. But when you surround yourself in those environments, it also forces you to raise your bar of expectation, you know, right. Because again, your expectation leads directly to what you're going to go out there and create, because you will always create if you're committed to taking action, what your expectations are for yourself. It's just like a student, you know, like my son who's 9 years old. Yeah. Right. Like if he gets an A-, he's like, oh, my life's over. you know, right? Like, and I'm like, dude, bro, it's 8, you know, you know, you get that for me because I'm not.
That must be your oldest.
Push him on grades, you know, right? I'm like, it's all waste of time anyway. We just probably have to send you to school. But he set that expectation for himself to be a, you know, straight A. Like he gets them, and he's hardcore. But that's his expectation he set for himself. You know, right? So we got to raise that expectation. The best way to do that is put your environment where you're exposed, and you can see those. Because the other cool thing too is, you know, I remember having lunch one time with Mark Victor Hansen. So we did a speaking event together. He's a co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, right? And this dude's a billionaire, and I'm having lunch with him, and I mean, extremely impressive, absolutely amazing human being, you know, right? But during that time, I'm like, look, man, it was so powerful internally because it's like, look, this guy, he's no different than any of us. You know, he's just a human being that was very clear on what he wanted, extremely focused, put in the work, and was extremely committed to creating success, and it paid off. And I'm like, look, if I am extremely focused, extremely committed, work my ass off, and make the right decisions, I can create that same success too. So you start to see what's possible, and you start, you know, raising that bar for yourself. Right. Yeah, right. And it becomes extremely powerful. Yeah, living it. Yeah, it's very important. You know, you make those visualizations, and then you put one foot in front of the other. You know, we had one of our clients the other day said, "Done is better than perfect." And I love it because you got to do it. You got to be doing it. You got to be doing it. If you try to create it perfect and then take a step, you're going to find out you didn't have it perfect. Well, perfectionism is a hologram, right? Like what's that's right. It can always improve. It can always be better. And it's, you know, you'll never quite reach perfection. But, you know, I in some of your podcasts that you've done, we hear you talk quite a bit about authenticity. And what I like about paving the way and of course connecting to what we do in personal branding. In personal branding, you are looking to create this or not create, but put forth this image and message to attract the right people into your life in terms of business, when it comes to real estate, or any business really. Attract them into your life, and those people need to be attracted to whatever stands out about you and the attributes and traits that you bring forth. And so that makes kind of that perfect marriage, but it's the authenticity in that too, because I find even though you look at somebody else and you say, okay, I like the way that guy treats his wife. I like the way this woman treats her husband, or I like the way this person has great integrity in business, or whatever that may mean. I find a lot of times the reason you're looking to those people is because that's really what's within you already. You just don't know how to express it the right way, and you want to be the best you can be at it. So I feel like that authenticity is so important, because the people you admire, you actually have those same traits within you. You just admire them in them, and you're trying to make them better. Put them out there. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And it's, I mean, that's why you're pulled to some people, and other people repel you, you know, right? And anytime that you have a message. Exactly. Like maybe you're a huge Mel Robbins fan, you know, right? And you're hearing her message and it inspires you, and right. And you really like that message. Like you said, I mean, that's just triggering a light that exists inside you. Mm-hmm. But you got to pay attention to those cues. So then now you can figure out how to make that light shine. And I think too, that goes kind of back to your story, because when we get our lowest and we suffer depression and, you know, heaven forbid, think about committing suicide, those things are where those moments in our life, we don't see that inner star. We just don't see it. Right. Well, for whatever reason, we're not seeing it. And what was it in your life, Joshua, that you think made you finally see that potential inside you? You know, it was just small wins. You know, right? Again, it wasn't one big thing. I mean, it was the big thing was the clarity, not really what I wanted, but just what I didn't want. Yeah, right. And then from there, it was just you experience a little win. Yeah, right. And then it just kind of pumps you up a little bit. You know, right. And then you experience another win, and then another one. It's just a stack of these little wins. You know, I have a teammate of mine. We just recently did a hero journey video on for recruiting, about his experience with the team. And he's like, you know, one of the best parts about being on the team and being, you know, around Joshua Smith is he's like, you know, when I first joined him, he'd always sit there and say, man, you have unlimited potential. You have unlimited potential. He's like, I never believed it, you know, right? But he kept saying it. He goes, then, you know, jumping into systems, you know, had, you know, a small win, and then another small win, and then another small win. another small win. And that whole time, Josh is saying, you have unlimited potential. You have unlimited potential. He's like, and then over time, as that win started stacking up and I kept hearing that message, I started to believe it. And he goes, and now I know it. It's not even that I kind of believe it. He's like, now I know with full certainty that I have unlimited potential. I can create anything I'm committed to creating. So it was really just a stack of the wins and that exposure. I remember the first time that I saw my broker close 20 deals in a month. And I was like, oh my God, right? Like I couldn't even fathom that before. I mean, I was like, this is 2006 where there was no smartphones or, DocuSign. So capacity.
Oh yeah. I worked back then too. I know.
But I remember like I was struggling, I was working hard to, close, 5 a month. And this dude popped 20. I'm like, holy shit. Like, how is that possible? But then you see it's possible, right? And you start seeing what they're doing, breaking it down. And okay, but then now raise the expectation. And it's like the person that broke the 4-minute mile or whatever. Like nobody broke it forever. And then all of a sudden all these people are breaking it. They know it's possible, right? And you start gearing towards it. And now today, fast forward, 12 years from that point, if I only closed 20 deals in a month, right? Like I couldn't even pay my bills.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be like the worst possible month I've had in like 8 years, right? But there was a point where I couldn't even fathom that, right? So yeah, it's just the stack of the wins, right? And I mean, some people might be blessed to have, one turning point or that one person that entered their life where they saw the light and then boom, right? For me, it's just been a kind of a sequential journey, with that. And again, going back to the facing your fears, with this, like, here's an example. I mean, I've spoke on, and again, I don't tally this stuff up, but I mean, I've done hundreds and hundreds of public speaking events at this point. And I was just speaking 2 days ago, at a local brokerage here. And every time I speak, I always have to have my water bottle next to me because I get massive cotton mouth because I'm so freaking nervous. And every time I get up there, even at my own team meetings, right, I had to join Toastmasters for a year just to get comfortable. When I say comfortable, like comfortable enough where I could stand up and present and get through it, right?
You face the fear, but not overcome it, right?
Yeah. So when it's so now, like like I don't know if I'll ever be able to let go of that fear, not have that fear anymore of public speaking. But because I've done it so many times, I've faced it so many times, and I continue to face it, the audience doesn't know I'm afraid.
Exactly.
Right. With that. But of course, because the authenticity piece, I tell them right up front that, been drinking a lot of water. I apologize, but I'm, scared as hell being up here, right? Like action piece. Yeah.
That is so endearing to an audience.
Oh, it is. It is. I mean, you said it earlier. We're all the same, right? We're all, no matter where our status is, no matter how much money we've made or how successful we are in business, we're all the same. Like we have the same fears, same emotions. Everybody's got the same. Some of them in different quantities, but yeah, that is something. Even I've been a public speaker all my career, especially as an auctioneer, and I learned early on that intimidation factor that you feel inside, if you rechannel that, it's an energy. It's a super positive energy. And it goes the same if you're talking to strangers on the phone. Taking that and rechanneling that, focusing and getting rid of the confusion of everything else. What matters? It just matters about one or two things. And like you said, when you had your turnaround, one or two things that you focused on.
Yeah. Because when you break it down, like medically, fear or excitement and anxiety measure on the same wavelength frequency. It's just how you are able to channel that, as you mentioned, right? Are you going to channel it in a good way, right? Or do you allow yourself to go into a dark place and channel in a bad way, right? So it's all the same shit.
It really is. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, listen, that said, real estate, you're an entrepreneur, fantastic entrepreneur, but real estate's been a major focus for you. We are entrepreneurs and we have programs for entrepreneurs also. But real estate's very important to us. It's endearing to me. It's important to me. We have a lot of real estate agents that watch this podcast and are going to watch it. And they have fears about putting themselves out there. And they're a lot of times they're concerned about what are my peers going to think about my brand, or they have an intimidation factor of what other people are going to think about them when they put their face or their story out there. You got any words of wisdom about that?
Yeah. So let me switch my camera here so you can maybe see this. See that Eminem poster right there?
Yes.
So
I love it.
I'm a huge Eminem fan, right? And I heard this story of when Dr. Dre first discovered Eminem. Eminem is sitting down having a conversation with Will Smith. And Will Smith told him, he's like, look, you sure you want to do this? You know, right? He's like, you are either going to be the biggest laughing stock that rap has ever witnessed and ever seen, or you're going to be the biggest thing this industry's ever seen. But he's like, there's going to be no in between. So you got to be prepared for either one of those things, right? And I'm sure that was a very scary time for him, you know, right? But he chose, hey, I'm going to go all in. And now he's the greatest rapper that to ever exist, right? Not just based on what my ears listen to, but from
very true. No, I agree.
So again, it's just making that conscious choice of what matters most to you, you know, right? Because we've all heard the cliches, you know, right? Like if you don't want any criticism, the only way to make that happen is to do nothing and be nothing, yeah, right? Like you're gonna get criticized when people are criticizing you. And there's a lot of great books on this. My favorite is by Byron Katie, and it's called Loving What Is. Right. And it's absolutely brilliant. And it's just really turning around that your paradigm and how to channel it. Because most people's opinion of you is about them, you know, right? Because look, when you're creating success, when others are seeing that, especially those that are closest to you, you know, like your siblings and your people that grew up with you. Because it's like, look, from the same DNA, the same upbringing, the same parents, the same scenario, same situation, all the same opportunities. But you chose to capitalize on them and go out there and create success. And when they're not, it's going to make them feel shittier about themselves. Right. So, and you look at it this way, like, I have to the point now where I have a full-time assistant that, probably 80% of his day is removing negative comments, hate comments off of our ads, off of YouTube, you know, whatever. It's just constant. Yeah. Right. And it was tough when you're seeing, you're just seeing all these hate comments 24/7. Yeah. Right. Now it doesn't bug me because I don't see it because he has to deal with it. Right.
You gotta remove it.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to be one of these guys that's like, oh man, like fuck haters. You need haters to grow. And you know, I mean, I get all of that, but the reality is when I'm reading those hate comments, like it's hurtful, man. It weighs on me too.
Right.
Yeah. Right. But I still choose to stay in action. And the reality is, like, I don't know one successful person that would ever take the time to comment negatively on anything.
Very true. So true.
Exactly.
You know, right? So you got to understand, okay, who are these haters? There are people that they're so bored. Their life is so shitty. They have nothing to do other than be a spectator and try to tear other people down. People are tearing other people down. Yeah, right. Again, I mean, they're just, you got to put that stuff into perspective. Yeah, right. And because if you don't, like, if you don't get your mind right with this stuff, man, it's I don't know how you can go down the success journey and have success with it. You know, if you don't, the whole saying, you know, control your mind, control the world, at least your world. You know, right? Which is the only one that you can control.
Yeah, and you know, I that's kind of a parallel to something we deal with all the time. So people will say to us, well, let us see some personal brands that you've done for other people. And of course, we're proud of our work. So we love it. You know, our whole team works very hard to work one-on-one with people to give them this authentic brand that really belongs to them and only them. But the problem is, if I were to say to you, Joshua, take a look at these next 10 brands here and tell me what you think, you might actually hate 7 or 8 of them. Do you know why you would hate 7 or 8 of them? Because not one of those is yours.
You're right.
Right. And it's so easy to be criticize this, but personal branding is also subjective. So while a guy in a blue collar neighborhood might want to just wear a polo shirt and be on a billboard and have this cool, like, laid back approach, somebody out in LA might want this posh scenery behind them and, you know, all made up with the makeup and the hair and everything and be very different in that regard. And they look at him and say, oh, you guys don't really do nice brands, right? So it's like, wait a minute. Don't tell him that because he's so happy with his and he's made about $400,000 this year.
You're right.
So it's people focusing too much on others and what others' appearances are and judging themselves by what somebody else is doing. And we try to constantly tell them, don't look at what everybody else is doing. I can show you 500 brands. You might hate 400 of them. You might like 100 of them. None of them are yours. I want to make sure you're happy with yours, because at the end of the day, we have to be happy with ourselves. And it all starts right here.
Yeah.
right here.
And it's our path. I mean, my path's not Joshua's path. It's not even Tanya's path, even though our paths are parallel, right? Our path is our own path. We've been given that to reach the best potential that we can. And to circle back to what you said on so many deathbed confessions, that's really what it's going to boil down to. Did we leave it all on the field? Did we do everything? Did we at least aspire to do everything that we had dreamed of? And removing any fear, or at least overcoming those fears of not reaching for those things, that is the regret that I don't want to ever have. I don't ever want to have.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and as a business owner, or when you're in sales, you know, right, it's really important to be able to qualify or dequalify people as quickly as possible. Yeah, right. So I guess that's a great dequalifier for you, because if they're so focused, like, nobody's going to create a successful business if they're more focused on LeBron James stats and their own stats and building their own stats.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So,
yes.
you know, but what you guys do right, and that what we never see in this industry, but you guys have nailed, is, you know, before you're creating your brand, going through the discovery process of what, like, who your ideal client is, why that person's important to you, why you do what you do, the impact that you want to make. And really drawing that out, because I don't think what people realize is, like, your brand, it's you, it's the extension of you. It's just like when people are like, oh, hey man, can you tell me how to improve my culture? You know, right? It's like, well, dude, your culture is you. You want to
Right.
work on you. Yeah, right.
Good
You know,
point.
so it becomes so different with that, and your brand is the you know, your messaging. Like, dude, I'm guessing if, let's just say, Apple never happened, Steve Jobs never happened. If I came out with an Apple, called my real estate company Apple, and had that same Apple logo, I'd probably get mocked and made fun of and whatever. Yeah, right. But it became now the most successful company to ever exist in recorded history, right? But why? Because that Apple meant something to Steve Jobs, right? And that company, I mean, Steve is the brand, right? And the Apple's synonymous with that. And if you look at all the, you know, look at, like, Gary, like most real estate agents that might watch Gary Vaynerchuk, they probably don't even know what he does, you know, right? They know his name, you know, right? But they probably don't know that he's got these massive agencies with thousands of employees, you know, right? So it's all intertwined and synonymous, you know, and when you're judging other people's brand, you may not know the story, you know, right? Like,
Oh, exactly.
what I'm looking at is what are the results, right? Like, that's what I care about. Like, what are the results that they're getting, right? Like, if somebody wants to think one of my brands shitty, yeah, right, because I have so many, and each company kind of has its own brand, but I'm the one, I guess, common denominator in each. Yeah, right. They can think my logo looks whatever. But it's like, all right, let's compare P&Ls, and then you can talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Let's win that.
Sure.
You win that, and then we'll have a conversation. Then I'll choose to listen. Otherwise, like, shut the fuck up and go.
And that's, yeah, exactly. And you know what? I'll throw this in, and then I got one last question for you. But that's where it really gets interesting, because your idea of success is not the same as the next guy's.
That's
too.
so true.
Because
so
we
true.
have people get on the phone with us, and some of them will say, look, I've done really well in real estate for years. I don't want to lose ground. We've got all these new people coming in, all these millennials. They understand social media better than I do. But I also, you know, I don't need to make a whole lot more money. I just want to keep the money that I've got for the next 8 years till I retire, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the goal to that person. And they may be only doing 30, 40 deals a year total, right? And yet other people might look at it and say, well, I made $150,000 last year. I want to double it next year. And so, and other people will come in and say, I'm happy with the amount of money I'm making, but I don't want to work myself to death to get it. I need to create a brand and a system that is going to help me attract the right kind of people instead of all the wrong kind of people. And I'm chasing my tail, right? So it depends on everybody's idea of success is different. And that too is where you can't compare yourself to somebody else either. So it becomes very interesting all the way around. And I love what we've talked about today, because it really is all about, like, be your best self, look inside and figure that out. And
that fulfillment,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
You said. Yeah, looking for that fulfillment. For
absolutely.
Sure.
And as you just mentioned, I mean, we all have to define success for ourselves, right? Like, who the hell am I or anybody else to tell you what success should be for your life? Right. And that's why it's so important to go through that self-discovery process. But then the cool part is the path to creating success is the same for all of us. Yeah, right. It's just small, tiny, right decisions. I mean, each and every day that compound over time that add up to a successful life, whatever that is for you. You know, like, I've got, you know, one of my best friends here locally, success to him is working 30 hours a week, making $400,000 a year, works Monday through Thursday, and then he's in the mountains with his family. But that to me isn't success. Like I want to go big, right?
Right.
But we're both extremely successful in our own right. Right.
And that's so important to understand, because you'll have some agents that'll look up somebody else in their same MLS and say, oh, you're working with them. They only did, they only sold $4 million last year. That's not successful. It's like, what are you talking about? Whose idea of success is
That's
this?
especially dumb if they only sold $1 million last year.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And then too, like we're in a business, and you guys got to be really careful with this, and not
oh, yeah.
Michael and Tanya, but those that are watching and listening, if we're in like the only industry out there that celebrates the gross, right? And it's not that I don't think that a lot of agents are lying or being truthful. Most just don't know their numbers, and they're not entrepreneurial, so they don't really know their numbers. So when they tell you things, they're just kind of pulling out of their ass, giving their best guess, which is dangerous, right? So, like here's an example. I actually have a coaching client of mine, a one-on-one client, that if we look at units, whatever. I mean, I'll do probably 4 or 5 times the amount of business that she does. Yeah, right. But I'm exited from production. Yeah, right. And so I'll do 4 million in GCI this year. She'll do $1 million. Yeah, right. But she's about 80% of that in her business. Now, from a profit standpoint, she'll net about 100 more thousand this year than I will. Right. Even though I'm selling way more, I'm doing more volume, but she's making more money. And we're at different points in our businesses. Like the bigger that you grow, the thinner the margins get. Right. Sure. Now, she's having to work 60 hours a week in that business. I'm working, 60 hours a year, right. But it allows me to go focus on other things. But, I've been on stages, right, where I'm getting ready to go speak and they're introducing me. And they're like, oh, Joshua Smith at one point, 2 million, at one point, whatever, 2 million last year in gross commissions. They was clapping. I'm walking out there like, yeah, but what they don't know is I'm $100,000 in credit card debt, right? Like what looks everybody is going to make themselves look cool and sexy. And I get it. My favorite meme is, may someday your life be as cool as you pretend it to be on Facebook. Right? Like we're going to share the accolades. But you don't always see, like we all go through different shitstorms. We have ups and lows and highs and lows, but I know very few team leaders that are doing over $100 million a year in production that are netting more than $500,000 a year, right? So, and they take on a lot of risk, right? So again, I mean, what you see, that's why comparison's such a scary game. Yeah, right. Things aren't always what they appear.
It is.
Stay in your lane, right? Like, and who cares what anyone else is doing at the end of the day? Like, if I'm giving my all, right? Like, maybe my all isn't going to be the equivalent of Grant Cardone's all. Maybe I don't have a private jet. I don't care about having a jet, but if I start comparing myself to Cardone, though, but I'm giving my all, then I'm gonna, I'm always gonna be beating up on myself and self-sabotaging myself, right? Just stay in your lane and just focus on yourself. Are you giving your all in the aspects of your life that matter to you? And that's all that matters.
So true. Well, we'll close out with this, Joshua. First of all, I want to say, we're on the phone with oh my gosh, dozens of agents every week all over the world. And we've had a chance to talk to several of the people that are actually in your coaching program in just the recent weeks. And I have to tell you, they're very impressed and they love it. They absolutely love your authenticity. They love the energy you bring, and especially the tips that help them get more business. We want everybody to know what they need to do next to get in touch with you.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, the Mastery Boot Camp, I always get asked, like, why'd you start it? You got this really successful real estate team and company and these other, like, why'd you start it? And the reality is out of frustration. I think all us real estate agents, right, we're sold so much. And after spending about $300,000 on coaches and consultants and events and, still not finding what I was looking for, over the years and having to go through a lot of pain to figure it out. I just out of frustration, I just committed one day to creating the most, at least what I feel is the most effective and affordable platform that exists out there. And it's just blown up. I mean, we've had over 4,500 agents from all over come through that, to the point now where it's private invitation only. So enrollment's fully closed right now. We open up a few times a year, but we have such a big waiting list that it can be tough to get in there. So if you want to learn more about that, it's at the website. There's masterybootcamp.com. You can set up a discovery call. You'll see on there we have a very strict no sell policy. So you're never sold. You're just educated, answer your questions. And we can add you to that waiting list, let you know when the next one is. right? If it's something that you want to check out. But then, I created the GSD Mode podcast just because look, this industry has changed every aspect of my life. It's made me a better man. It's made me, more financially successful, become a better father, a better friend. I mean, it's the people that I've met, the relationships that I've had. I mean, it's literally leveled up and it changed every single aspect of my life. And I truly believe that we're in the most amazing industry that exists out there. And, I started the GSD Mode podcast just to give back, right? Because we're sold. We talked about this before we hit the record button, man. Like realtors are sold 20 times more than any other entrepreneur out there. It's nonstop. Everybody's got their hand out. And then you pay $500 to go to this conference. And then the conference, the whole thing's a fucking sales pitch, right? And it's just so annoying.
That's true.
Yeah, right. So I created the GSD Mode podcast just to give the right information. Yeah, right. So no theory, there's no coaches that haven't done it, that are interviewed on that podcast. There's no, where do we get our information from? A title company rep or lender that's ever sold real estate, right? Like they know may have to create success in their field, but not in your field. So it's only the doers, right? And we have an array of, hey, we, like for example, just interviewed Chad Nash, who ended up doing $270,000 in his first year. Yeah, right. Brand new out of school, right. So we have individual brand new agents that are crushing it to the best of the best in the industry, in every array of it. But just the doers, and everything in there is 100% free. It's all, and I have over 1,000 interviews now. It's the #1 podcast in the industry. It featured in Forbes and the Wall Street Journal, and it's really taken off. So gsdmode.com, you can go check that out. Or you can just look it up on YouTube. If you just type in Joshua Smith GSD, you'll see it. Subscribe there. And on GSDmode.com, I have a lot of free resources. I have 41 weeks of free coaching tips where I give you, all of our top effective scripts and strategies that we do in our business. And I deliver one a week because there's a lot to implement. Right. And again, we have a very strict no selling policy, so you'll never be sold in there. These are just free tools for you. I've got some free master classes, like a 3-hour online training right now that you can go through that really dissects and breaks down how to have success in the business. So just some resources for you guys to go check it out.
I can't thank you enough for being on this show with us and having us on your podcast. We thank you so much for that. I think you're fantastic, dude. Love your energy. Love it. You're a doer.
That's right. That is right. We love it. And thank you so much, Joshua.
Yeah, truly means a lot. Awesome. Absolute massive honor. And just those of you guys that are watching and listening, because I'm a real estate agent through and throughout, right? Like I will call people out on their bullshit all day long. And, when Tanya and Mike were on my podcast, you can't see them, go watch it because it's really powerful. But I really broke down, I made them take me through their whole entire process, right? Because I know branding very well. Right. And seeing their process methodical, I want to know, vet these people out and be like, are they just another scammer out there? I'm telling you guys right now, they're legit. Their process is as dialed in as any I've ever seen. So they're doing amazing work. So I highly recommend to look into their services because they got their shit dialed. And I truly appreciate you guys and all the hard work that you're doing and the impact you're making on this amazing industry of ours.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
You almost made me cry. That was so nice. All right, guys. So I'll close it out with this. If anybody out there is listening to this and you want to become as fearless as Joshua and you want to discuss your brand, go to discussyourbrand.com and sign up, and let's talk about your brand and what we can do to help you get where you deserve to be.
That's right, folks. And we like to say that prosperity is what we're after here. We're not talking about just the money. We're talking about the 360 deal of prosperity. It's about having an abundant life. And we say prosperity favors the bold, folks. So be bold, especially with your brand. Thank you, Ms. Tanya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you both, gentlemen. See you next time on Fearless Friday, guys.